All right, we're live. Hey, this is Coach Arnie, and we are here on the Health, Love, and Life show. And again, just a reminder to everybody that you can follow me on Twitter, TikTok at Real Coach Arnie, Instagram and Facebook Arnie Fonseca Jr. Instagram, I said Coach Arnie F. I'm trying to get them all, or just Google me, Arnie Fonseca Jr. You can call me, text me, email me, Arnie Fonseca Jr. at gmail.com. I wish I could say my new website's up, but I just got a call from my web person, and they promised me I would have something to go on Monday. So I'm about ready to put a bullet in my head, but I'm being patient because it's supposed to be really good. So, but whatever. But tonight we're going to have a really cool show. A good friend of mine who I met many years ago at my clinic when I was doing brain and spinal cord rehabilitation. He's a really special man. He's a friend of mine and my wife's as well. He's a former professional athlete. And the reason I say athlete is because he's a rare commodity here because he played professional baseball, and then he played in the NFL and in the Super Bowl. This guy is really special. He's got a big heart. His name is Ed Smith, and he's also a radio talk show host, speaker, you name it, and author. Can't forget that. Easy Ed Smith, right, Ed?
That's it, Arnie. I appreciate you having me on, man. One of my favorite people, you and Carrie, and have been looking forward to this since you talked about having me on the show. So nothing but love, man, and appreciate all you do on the other side.
Yeah, Ed, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on is that you do a lot as a speaker and inspiring or motivational guy, especially with young people. I just want you, because especially today and what's going on in the schools and with these young people out there, they need more presentations from guys like you. I was talking to a school today and mentioning to it's one of these city kind of groups that works in the school systems, and she was saying how they're trying to coordinate everything to make sure that it's safe for the kids. And I kind of chuckled, but I said, but it's a problem that's getting worse, isn't it? And she goes, yeah. And here's my take on that, Ed, and I'll get your input, is that I think if they bring more people in like you that see the world a little differently than these psychologists and these educators do, I think the kids respond more to that. What do you think?
I do, and sometimes that's not necessarily a great thing, Arnie. For me, I love going into schools, and I know you and Carrie, you get in there as well. And I love going in and trying to inspire these kids. What I wish was we had more of that good home training like you and I and our generation used to have. I was fortunate enough, my dad just passed last year, but, between my mom and my dad, those were my role models. And those are the people that raised me with the rod and, and brought us up the right way. And I think, today with all the social media and things and the outlets that the youngsters have, they're looking more outwardly in terms of trying to grasp that inspiration. And that's not always good, and like I said, I do enjoy going in and speaking to kids, and especially when I see a light, I open up in at least one or two pair of eyes. But I wish we had more of that training, that in-house stability like we did back in the day. We're kind of getting further and further away from that. And I think we're, getting into like a crisis situation. A lot of single parent homes, a lot of fathers who aren't there, mothers doing it on their own, and vice versa. But, it's sad when I hear some of the stories out there. But in saying that, it's great when you or I or Carrie or anybody who else is out there has a sincere heart and goes into these schools and try to talk to these kids, because they do need it as much as they possibly can get it.
Yeah, and you and I, when I had a different show before and we talked about it, it was pretty emotional because my dad's story is probably opposite of yours, and my generation, a little older than you are, but I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. had a great relationship with my mom, but these are Depression era kids. And so the expectations were a little different back then. And, my generation was all about go to school, get an education, get a good job, right? Take care of yourself. And so my mom's love, even though it was genuine, and I always knew she loved me no matter what, but it was somewhat conditional, meaning that if I had a job and I was taking care of myself, I wasn't quite sure about my dad. We just had such a rocky relationship. Now, my grandmother, I could have been a mass murderer and she wouldn't have cared. She just would have loved me. You know what I'm saying? And so that feeling of unconditional love, I think we all need that in our lives somewhere along the line to know what it really feels like. And sometimes I think that that's what these young people are missing, some aspect of unconditional love where they don't have to perform for anybody. You know what I'm saying? And so I think they can learn to not be, what's the word here? Either way, they don't feel that they have this performance anxiety going on, that they're not good enough. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think, listening to you and your brother, Ed, I don't think you had that with your dad, that you had to perform. Did you?
No, we didn't. The only thing my dad and my mother ever asked of us is whatever we did it with our heart. We went out, we didn't quit on things. As long as we gave it our best, it was win, lose, or draw. I didn't win every athletic or academic accolade, through my days. But as long as I gave them my best, they always understood that's all we can ask of you. There were those times, though, when my brother and myself, we thought we could coast on our, past, successes. And those were the times when I learned the lesson that from my dad, especially, because there were times when I thought, well, I'm a good enough athlete. I don't have to go out there and do anything. I can just show up on game day and play. And I had some failures earlier in life, and he would always remind me, that's why I'm always after you about going out there and making sure you practice. The games aren't won on Saturdays if you're playing. The games are won Monday through Friday. If you're out there in the backyard and we're pitching, sometime out there with the lights almost where he couldn't even see me throwing, and I'm, skipping them on him and getting them in the shins and stuff like that. He was willing to go out there and take those balls off the shin as long as I was willing to go out there and put the practice and the work in. And that's what they always kind of instilled in us, is not the end results, is what you put into everything you're trying to do, not just in sports, but in life as well.
And I think because of that, it wasn't like we're seeing a lot today. I mean, he wasn't going to tell you, like, hey, if you struck out and if you went to him and said, hey, Dad, the sun was in my eyes. No, sorry, but you just didn't hit the pitch, man. I think they gave it. See, I think both of us grew up in an atmosphere of, hey, look, just give it to me straight. You know what I'm saying? Because we didn't get away with making excuses. I mean, I know I didn't, and it didn't sound like you did either. Because if you didn't perform well on Saturday, your dad's going to say, well, you didn't really put the work into it this week, and because you weren't going to be able to BS him, right?
Never. Yeah, I mean, because my mom and my dad, they were always right there. They knew exactly what we were doing. They knew what was on the agenda. And my dad, he knew when I wasn't, putting everything in, or if like I said, he knew when I wasn't practicing or if I wasn't taking it seriously. And the other thing, though, too, Arnie, is, and you bring it up, they never put pressure on us like we had to perform, especially for them. Today's society, a lot of times the parents are out there pushing these kids because they want to look good. Yeah. It's not about the kid getting out there learning lessons, maybe enjoying having fun and figuring out if maybe someday they can go to the next level. With a lot of what's going on today, it's all about the parents trying to, it's almost like, look at me, they're the proud peacock. And it's not about the kids, what they're doing. It's about, hey, look at my kid, look what I did, look what I raised. And I never had to experience that.
Yeah, and I think it's creating, the word I was looking for is insecurity. I think it's creating a lot of insecurities in these kids today, and anxiety, because, I started talking about it 27 years ago. I was teaching a class at Glendale Community College, and one of the lessons that I would teach every year was, back then we didn't have a lot of the private coaching that's going on today. That's just epidemic, right? Where everybody's like a specialist in baseball or football or basketball. Club sports is really, really big. And I would get such a kick out of these parents, Ed, that never played at a high level, even in high school. Yet their kids, they were putting so much pressure on their kids because they gave them special practices and special this to perform at that level. I'm thinking, I'm just going, what makes you think your kid's going to be that great when you couldn't even play? It doesn't work that way.
You bring up a magic word too, Arnie, about the anxiety that they're forcing on these kids. And I've seen it where a lot of these kids, they do it and they have the smile and the happy face on, but when it's all said and done, they can't stand it. They don't want to be out there. As soon as they have the opportunity to make their own decisions, they're leaving the sport because of all the pressure that's been put on them to perform and compete against others who might have actually more talent, but because their mom and dad can pay for it, they're being elevated. And then once again, it comes the pressure, anxiety of having to try to perform. And that's so unhealthy. And then it doesn't just bleed into their sports world. It carries on into their social life, their academic life. They're always feeling like they're under pressure. And so many things come in a negative connotation from that. And that's why a lot of these kids, we would call it the early burnout syndrome to a certain degree. They're ridden so early, into their lives, and they never have to. And one of the things, Arnie, when I go into these schools, I always try to remind these kids, look, someday you're going to be my age, and the fun of life is going to be sucked away. You got to pay bills now. You got to do this. You got all these obligations. Enjoy yourself as much as you possibly can while you're at this stage of your life. And I try to encourage kids, look, everything you should be one, you should be preparing for your future, but you should also be out there having as much fun and enjoying life as you possibly can. Because at some point you're going to become an adult, and that comes early, obviously getting into college and whatever your next steps are after. But, I'm telling you, it's just such a burden that some of them carry at such an early age. And it's sad to watch sometimes. I
is. And I was telling a father today, I've known him for, over 20 years, Ed. And he's been really sharing with me some issues he's had with his kids. One's a teenage daughter, and the other one's a young adult parent now who's married, just got married. He's 21, 22. And he's making some really dumb decisions based on impatience, which a lot of these young guys. And I just told him today, and I was telling his dad, I said, listen, I go, the key word here is patience. I go, ask him what he's going to do for the next 90 years of his life. You know what I'm saying? 90 years. Why he has to be so impatient in the next 6 months. He's got 90 years to straighten it out. Right, Ed? So like you were saying, why are these kids putting so much pressure on themselves? Figure stuff out, try different things out. Granted now he put himself in somewhat of a little bit of a prison because he got married and had a kid. Okay. Yeah. But be responsible. But the thing he was talking about doing today was leaving that family to go figure out if this other job opportunity would be better, even though he'd be making less money and spend 6 months away from his brand new wife. And I'm thinking that might not be something smart to do. She may say go now, but in 6 months, she may not be very happy. And so are you creating bigger problems for these, for themselves? And it's the word to me is impatient, but I want to back up for a second because we're talking about having fun and stuff like that. And I want to get your opinion. I think 2 weeks ago, they started this new video game league. Do you hear about that? They're playing.
No, I know they have those whatever they're called. Those, but I've seen them on TV. I know what you're talking about. I didn't know there's college curriculums that are put together for those gamers as well.
Yeah, like I think Fortnite, whatever they're playing. But the Vikings owners, they own a team in Minneapolis.
Okay.
There's a number of there's a number of teams now around the country, and they compete against other teams. And these guys are making six figures, Ed, playing Fortnite or whatever, right? And so who are we to tell this kid he needs to go out there and grind and be part of something that's not fun, as what you just said, because his parents are grinding him, got to show up, got to go early. Like remember swimmers had to get up at 4:00 in the morning and get down there and swim, 3,000 yards and all that stuff. And you're making your kid go to practice. I know kids that work out early in the morning, then they have to go to school, right? And then they work out again after school. They're not having fun, Ed.
Yeah.
And whereas these kids are going like this, and they're going, I'm going to play professional games, right?
And that's an interesting kind of, thing, Arnie. I question, there's one thing if your kids are outside and they're being active and they're running around, maybe pursuing that dream of basketball, baseball, for whatever it is. You're talking about, and, I have a little one, I have a 9-year-old son, and, he loves his video games, but there's also a limit to how much he's allowed to play or, that we're going to expose him to, especially at an early age. I think back to when we were kids, and our thing was we couldn't wait to get home to find out which park we were going to or whose backyard we were going to play, even if it was, baseball in the backyard, wiffle ball, football out in the front street, basketball at the basketball court at school, or if you were lucky enough to have one in front of your house. Those are the type of activities I think that are encouraging for kids because they're getting them out, getting them active. The part that the stunted growth of these kids when they're sitting in front of a video game all day is their social skills, Arnie. These kids, we're developing a generation of kids that don't know how to communicate with others, that are socially inadequate, meaning, you put them in a group of their own peers. They have no idea how to communicate, talk, express themselves. And like I said, then they go home and they sit in front of a video game for 7-8 hours because this is their, goal. Like I said, that's just going so far to the extreme. Everything is great in moderation. If you're lucky enough, fortunate enough, and I equate this to the percentage of kids that turn out to be professional athletes is 1% of 1% of all the kids, through high school and the AAU. So think about the same thing with those video games. If you're going to put your stock in, well, I'm going to play 10,000 hours of World of Warcraft or whatever it is per month, and I'm going to become a professional. It doesn't work like that. So in the end, all we're doing is developing kids that have absolutely no social skills at all.
Well, we're not. I just did yeah, you're exactly right. I was calling some schools yesterday and literally, because one of my pet peeves and one of the things I teach at workshops for companies is that the person answering the phone, that's the tip of the spear for your company. And so I was calling a school yesterday, Ed, and the young lady answered the phone. First of all, her English wasn't very good. Okay. So it was hard to understand. And I got bumped around 3 different times until I ended up somehow at the principal's office with the assistant. I was just chuckling. I didn't criticize. I was just laughing. I go, well, I guess I was supposed to end up here. The next school I called, it was 180 degrees different. The young lady was wonderful, helpful, clear. She was it was great. And I complimented the person you got me to. I said, will you do me a favor? Will you compliment her and tell her she did such a wonderful job of answering the phone and helping me out? It made me feel really good. Because, Ed, we're not teaching that stuff, man. And these kids aren't learning it because you're exactly right.
Oh, no.
They're in front of that computer, so their skills are terrible. I have a favorite grocery store I go to, and there's some, I would call them nerds. They work there, and I always joke around with them and stuff. And we were talking about this whole video thing here. And, Ed, they have such poor social skills. And they work they're doing the cash register. They're the checkers. But I was joking around with them, and they kind of just, but they're you could tell how awkward they are with their social skills. Isn't that something?
I'll toss one more thing out at you, Arnie. Think about these phones they carry around. Phones, I mean, they're more powerful than computers we had when we were kids. So, and my son's 9 years old. Like I said, he doesn't have a phone yet. He's always after me about it, but we just haven't gotten to that point yet. In turn, a lot of kids his age in his school, they're already walking around with their cell phones. So imagine, now, when was the last time you walked anywhere? Like, say if you were crazy enough to go to a mall nowadays every kid is walking around like this.
Everyone.
With the face buried in the phone, almost ready to knock you over because they're not paying attention. They can't be anywhere without these things. So that's just another avenue of disconnect from society. So if it's not the computers are on or the gaming systems, they got the phones. You can't get a word out of them. I've been at people's houses and their kids, they come out and they walk around like zombies with this thing. And just to get them to say hello to you or acknowledge, which when I was a kid, an adult walked in the room, was like, hello, Mr. Such and such, at least acknowledge. They will almost knock you over nowadays and not have a worry in the world because, like I said, all this stimulation is coming from so many different directions and teaching them so many of the wrong things.
Hold that thought, Ed. We're going to take a quick break here. Just hold on. We're going to take about a 30-second break, so just hang on for a second.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, I forgot to remind you about that. That way, they're marketing this as a radio.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So hopefully that'll help you out as well. No, but you're exactly right, and that's here's another aspect here, and then I want to get to a little bit more about what you're doing with your radio show. But with all that said, Ed, all the social media I'll tell you how powerful this phone is. This phone is more powerful than the computer Ronald Reagan used to run the world in the 80s. Okay, how's that?
Isn't that something in
these little
palm of your hand
in their pocket? So yeah, and I call the young ones the Gen I's because they were born with a phone in their pocket. But loneliness, especially for kids, I'll say up until 18, 19, 20, even 21 right there in college. Loneliness is so epidemic right now. It really is, with all this stimulation going on, with all this, the phone and the computers and the pads and whatever they want, they can get whatever they want at their fingertips, yet loneliness is bigger than ever. And I'll add one more thought to that. I took my grandson to the Grand Canyon. We were talking. And we were talking about loneliness, and it came up because he shared that he's on the track team and he's on the cross country team, and he felt closer, which is the key to not being lonely, closeness. He felt closer to his cross country team because they did things together, versus the track team was kind of split up and they would all kind of do their own little thing. And I think that's what's happening today. We're not allowing ourselves to get close enough to people to do things together. And I think that's causing this because everything's being done online, right? Like kids can go home and play these games with guys all over the world, I guess. But you're not close. So you're lonely. I mean, you don't have anybody in your life that you can kind of lean on. And, like a buddy, like we all had, my age, the last place we wanted to be was in our house, because there was nothing to do. So you're better off out at your buddy's house and, or doing something, because there was nothing going on inside the house. So, so loneliness it's such a big thing today,
Yeah, I think that goes back to the social awkwardness, the detachment from, I guess, even just being connected to people. Think about this too, Arnie. Back when we were younger, it was all about who got to the telephone first, especially when you were a teenager.
Oh, man.
You could call somebody, have a chat, talk. My brother was notorious. We get home, and I'm going to date myself, but this is before call waiting, when, he would pick up the phone and get on it, and he'd be on the phone for 2 hours talking to somebody, and I would get to school the next day, find out somebody had been trying to call me all night. Well, we graduated obviously to the call waiting, and where we had to share it, and then we got to the point now where we think about it. It was the last time, or at least if you went and polled kids, the last time they sat on a phone and had like a deep conversation with their best friend. Instead, now it's all replaced by the text messages. So they'll text each other all day, no real connection, is because it's all this abbreviated talk and slang and stuff like that. They're not really connecting with people. It's all about the fast, and I call it the microwave society. You know, everybody wants it right now. You can text and, you know, carry on these conversations, but where's the actual connection, meaning talking to somebody? And then, like you said, we were real back in the day after school. If you didn't have an activity or something, man, it was all about everybody sitting around, maybe after a game or something, and literally just sitting and talking to one another. And it's not like that anymore. Like I said, it's between the text messages, all the everybody wants to be friends on Instagram and tweet each other, send, you know, text or post each other on Facebook and stuff like that. There's no actual connection happening. And when you talk about loneliness, that's what happens. It's like when the phone's put down, when the Instagram is not there, what do you have? You have nothing. Like some of my best, I love, and here's the thing, I don't want anybody to think I'm against technology, because I love technology. I'm thankful that I can keep in touch with teammates and friends from high school and, you know, teammates from my playing days all the way back in the late 80s, early 90s. So we have these connections now, but nothing feels better when I am in somebody else's city and I let them know, hey, let's get together and grab a cup of coffee or some dinner, or somebody just reaches out to me through a telephone call, actual conversation. Those are the things that we're missing nowadays, especially with the younger generation. I'm not surprised that there's a lot of loneliness out there, because there is no actual physical connection these days.
No, there's not. I mean, you know, real quick, you know, on that thought too, when you were saying that, it brought up memories of, you know, after practice and after games, just hanging out and talking about it. Now, the first thing they do is reach in their bag and grab their phone and move on, you know?
I'll tell you a quick story real quick, Arnie.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
One of my great friends, he was actually on my high school basketball team. I was a year ahead of him. He just reached out to me yesterday because he wanted me to get some old copies of some of our last basketball games together in my senior year. I reminded him, as he's like, wanted to let me know when I was coming back home to Jersey, because he wanted to get together. I reminded him, I said, hey, when I come back, you know, we got to go to friendlies, get that big Sunday we used to get back in the day after the games. That's connection. That's we did exactly what you talked about. We used to, after the big practice of games, his uncle used to take us to friendlies. We get this big old Sunday, and those are like great memories, because that was actual, like great, you know, like, so we really connected back in the day like that.
No, I know. You just brought up another memory with me, with my best friend who's passed away, you know, 10, 11 years ago. You know, he was he used to work with Jerry Colangelo with the Phoenix Suns. He was the first marketing director for the Suns, and he would take myself and his son out after every game, and we'd get ice cream, man. You know what I'm saying? And then I'd go off, you know, maybe a party or something like that. But he would. It was just a connection with, you know, just we'd sit there and talk about the game for, you know, an hour, and then head off to where we were going. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's kind of crazy, you know. Hey, Ed, why don't you, first of all, you know, go ahead and talk a little bit about your what you're doing now. I know you may want to even share the fact that, you know, are you wearing your ring, Ed? You got the ring on?
Oh no, it's downstairs in the in the case. Yeah.
You know, the fact that you played in the 99 Super Bowl, right? 99
yes.
Super Bowl,
Super Bowl 33.
The Dirty Birds, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Dirty Birds. You could share a little bit more about whatever you want to do, but let's talk about what you're doing now with your sports show, your speaking, and what you're doing right now as an athlete today, and what you're doing in your world, Ed.
Most important thing I'm doing, Arnie, is being a good dad to my 9-year-old son, Quentin. That's first and foremost. Everything else can go out the window. Like I said, my job is to raise him like my dad, to take the time to raise him like my dad took the time, and my mom, to raise me and my brother. So that's my first goal. And he loves the fact that daddy's a former athlete and gets a kick out of, you know, seeing some of the things I've done, whether it be on film or walking through the office and seeing all the trophies and the helmets and stuff like that. But, you know, after, retiring from sports in 2001, I've done a few different things. One of them was I have my autobiography, Easy Does It, The Journey of a Lifetime, was published in 2005. And that chronicles my journey through, starts at, you know, the initiation of life. I don't just jump into, I'm an athlete and I did this. You know, I tell a bit about my upbringing, some of the struggles we had early on when I was a kid, some of the decisions I had to make as a young man, being an athlete, trying to get through to the next level, which was college at first. Ended up signing my letter of intent to go to the University of North Carolina, and then eventually got drafted by the White Sox before I graduated high school. Took the leap, into professional sports at the tender age of 18. Played minor league baseball for 9 years, climbed that ladder. My story to that point was a story of always trying to overcome obstacles and working hard and getting through some of those young, stupid mistakes we make when we're younger. I was a father for the first time when I was 19. My oldest son's now 30. I just made me a grandfather actually back in December. So new grandfather, but, made some of those early mistakes, trying to get my career on track, struggled, got to a point after many things happened in life. At the age of 25, I decided, it was time to walk away from the game of baseball. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but crazy idea of pursuing football after being away from it for my senior year in high school just popped into my head. And, Lord guided me through a whole bunch of stuff. Arnie, I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version, but I was able to turn a crazy thought into several years in the NFL. Prior to that, I played over in the World League, but then came back to the NFL, a few years in the NFL. Fortunate enough, like you said, to play in a Super Bowl back in 1999. And, I said after kind of retiring, got into the world of, author. I've since then, become a public speaker, which I travel, and I have many different topics I speak on when it comes to my platform. I have leadership, team building, overcoming the obstacles. One of my favorite things to do is talk to the kids, give them the benefit of all my experiences as a young man trying to make his way, and that's for the young ladies as well. But, I have some faith-based presentations as well. So because of my experience through the minor leagues and then into the NFL and everything I've done, I've got some unique, ways to look at life. And I kind of pass those on, like I said, whether it be business or personal as well. So, and then just, I wouldn't say recently, but back in 2011, I started my first radio show on Saturday nights out here. It was called Easy Sports Talk. Even back then, I was on a local Christian station, getting my feet wet, did that for a couple of years, and then just decided to take a break. But because of how well I did it, a lot of people came after me. They wanted me to guest host on their shows and do different things. And over the course of the last bunch of years, I've worked now this March, the first week of March, I'll be celebrating my 3rd anniversary of the Easy Sports Talk Show, which is live every Saturday on KDUS 1060 AM out here in Phoenix. Like I said, 3rd year anniversary. The show is wrapped around sports, but my biggest thing is helping the community in any way I can. And that's why we support, can't tell you how many nonprofits, charitable organizations, anybody, that I can help. I like to do that. And that's part of what, we do at the Easy Sports Talk Show. Make it fun, make it sports, but also make it about the community and, bringing light to a lot of great people out there doing great things. And, it's been a blessing. It's a lot of hard work, as you know, Arnie, trying to juggle a whole bunch of things. What is that old saying? Is was it master something? Whatever it is. I do a whole bunch of things. I just try to do them as well as I possibly can.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So like my goal is to try to, like I said, bring and use all of my experiences to help as many people as I can, and also just enjoy life, man. It's like you said, it's a juggle sometimes. Sometimes we get too much on our plates, and I have to. And this is something I lean on you about. Sometimes I struggle because I don't realize I need to take care of myself as much as I'm trying to take care of everybody else. And that's something that you and I have talked about for years.
I live with somebody like that, Ed.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wrote her a letter about that, but
yeah, and it's tough. It's because especially when you have a cause and something you really want to do, but like I said, we have to sometimes stop, slow down, and make sure we're taking care of us, because if we're not taking care of us, we can't help it. Take care of
yeah, if you don't fill your coffee cup up, Ed, then there's not going to be anything left, is there?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got such a big heart, and you're giving stuff away, and everybody, he is exactly right about that. If for all of you that, and I hope you can find his show online, because I know when I'm out hiking on Saturdays, I can log online and listen to his show on 1060 AM. Right, Is that it? Isn't that right?
Yeah,
Ed?
we also do it on Facebook Live as well. So
Okay, there you go.
we do it on 1060 AM, and it's also on Facebook. And for anybody who can't catch either one of those, you can actually go on the KDUS 1060
That's right.
AM
Podcast.
site, and they got them all saved on there, or you can listen to them live wherever you're at.
But this man brings on, not just because he's brought on my wife a number of times, but he, one of our guests here, we had Michelle, he's brought her on. He brings on all kind of, I've heard some really neat people that he's brought on that are doing some great community things. They're contributing beyond themselves, which is really the key to life. When we're able to grow and we're able to contribute beyond ourselves, which is what you're doing, because you're just not hammering, sports. Granted, when there's big sports things going on and you live in a sports town here with the 4 major sports, I mean, you got a lot to talk about. But at the same time, when it's those, I know me, Ed, one of the things that I look forward to when it's Olympics or even the Super Bowl, I want to know the story behind the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's I don't know of any other sport, because I listen to a few. I don't know of any other sports radio show that does that here. Maybe there is, but you have a habit of bringing on people in the community that are doing things, charitable work, or having an event, or they've just done something special. I mean, it's just crazy stuff, but it's a story behind the story. And I always love that about what you guys are doing on your show.
One of the things too, Arnie, I tell everybody, we're a sports show. I could care less what the score of the game was yesterday. What I'm more interested in is even when we're covering sports, it's the conversation around what was going through a player's mind, or why this happened, and I credit my partner Javon Adams in terms of helping me steer in that direction. But as far as like the stories about our community and even a lot of our sponsors and partners, I want this to be about them as much as it is about me. So, when we take on new partners or we meet someone with a great cause, and I'll be honest with you, Arnie, I get around a lot, and I can't tell you how many times I've been somewhere and somebody will just start talking to me, and they'll see the ring or something, and they start talking, and then they'll start telling me a little bit about their story. One of the first things I do is I grab one of my cards and tell them, you know what? Your story needs to be heard. I don't care if it doesn't have to do anything about sports, but if it's related, that's cool.
Yeah.
But your story needs to be heard. Contact me so I can find some time to get you on, just so we can let everybody know what you're doing. And that's kind of my MO. Like I said, it's not the show is premised on sports, but it's more about our community. It's more about some of the great things that people are doing out there in our community. Yeah,
because people are, one of the reasons that I don't watch the news, because I don't want my blood pressure firing up. But at the same time, we all want to be understood, man. We all want to be understood. We all want to be especially men. I mean, obviously, I think your show attracts a lot of guys, but it attracts women too. But let's be honest, it's sports related, but guys want to be understood and appreciated. And you do that, and you give people, like you just said, because how many guys like that will ever in their life have somebody come up to them and says, I want to share your story with my audience. That's huge, man. That's huge.
Well, I think you say it all the time, too. Not enough people are doing that. Mm-mm. And I think it's, I'm blessed to have the platform, but I'll be honest with you, even if I didn't have this radio show, Arnie, I'd find some way to, like I said, just the kindness of my heart, but I would find some way to help get a lot of these stories out there, just because it's in my nature. But like I said, if we can't look at it as I'm doing, like any of us, or like you're doing your show here, we're not doing anything special. We're just doing some of what we feel like we were called to do. Everything you do with your show, reaching out to men, trying to open up avenues for men to be able to speak and talk about any subject, not be ashamed of anything. That's a blessing. And the number of people that you touched in your life is all because of the kindness of your heart. There are a lot of things you could be doing in place of that. Yeah. And, and I credit you and I thank you for all the years ago. The first time you met me, you were just, you're like, what's going on with your body? And I just remember, and this is I've known you so long. This is pre 2 shoulder reconstruction.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of stuff going on.
I've had a 5.5 hour back surgery. I've had both knees done, all these things. So I was walking around in all this pain for all these years. And the first thing you were like, man, we need to get you out of this pain. That's first and foremost. You didn't know me from Adam Marie when we first met to a certain degree, but your goal was, look, I got some things I think will help you. Yeah. And that's how our friendship blossomed. Sure. And it's just exploded from there. But that's all because of who you are and what you were trying to do out of the kindness of your heart. And that's what I try to emulate myself. If I can help somebody in any way, I'm going to do it.
Well, it's interesting, Ed, on that topic. Many years ago, you're right. And I do try to do that. I think like you, I find it a knack that when I meet somebody, Ed, or I haven't seen somebody in a long time, it's as if we're talking every day. And whether that's a gift from God, which I think it is, because I think you have the same way. I try to make people feel comfortable, and I think the best way to do that is to reach a hand out, and say, hey, look, my friend, I want to help you. I mean, whatever it might be. And I know that when you were saying that about your body, I remember when you took me over to an NFL PA meeting, and there were some broken bodies in that room. Ed, remember that? And I was walking around. I did a little presentation for everybody, and just walking around and just listening to those men tell me their stories of their bodies, and there was some emotion in that room about in anger and just because when you don't have control of your body as a man, because one of the things I was sharing with Cece before you got on the line is how 90% of the people, Ed, in this country that ask for help are women. 10% are men. That means there's a lot of guys out there, Ed, that are just struggling inside. Wow. They're hurting, man. And I think what you do and what I try to do is, get those guys just to talk, whether it's to come on your show and talk, or if we just in public, if they just call you up and say, hey man, hey Easy, can you just listen to me for a few minutes? Or I tell people that all the time, man, just call me and talk. And some people do really well with that. And some people really struggle with that because we're not taught that, Ed, as guys. We're just not taught that stuff, man. And it's hard, So, so that's why I love what you're doing with your show and with the story behind the story kind of thing. And I try to do that everywhere I go. Even last weekend where we were talking, there were some guys there that were broken, and I would just try to talk to them and try to help them. And because I always look at any event I go to, how can I help today? Because because if I go there and say, okay, who can I get business from today? Yeah, it makes for a tougher time. But if I go in there and go, who can I help today? And, it just makes for a more enjoyable time, doesn't it?
It does. And that's the proper approach, man. Like I said, I would love if everybody I met turned into somebody who could be a partner of the show or who want to have me in to speak. Or that's not my goal, man. And it's more than that. It's about, like I said, making that connection. And if one day at a time we can just reach one person, or show somebody, like in your case, show somebody there is hope, get them to open up, and I come from a very tight-lipped fraternity, especially the football fraternity. Arnie, a lot of guys don't want to talk about anything, whether it be their health or their mental things going on in their life. And I know a lot of guys that are suffering silently. Yep. And I always try to extend the hand, but everybody's not going to reach back and grab it, especially because of pride and that I guess that warrior mentality of being a former, especially a football player. So when someone like you comes along and you maybe from your perspective, you could get them to open up. That's golden, because like I said, things that certain guys won't tell me, they might tell you, or other alumni. And if we can just get one of those guys, a few of them here and there to open up. And the other thing, Arnie, athletes are great role models. So if others see athletes opening up and being human, being vulnerable, so they will in turn do the same, because they'll look and see, if that guy can do that, then who am I not to? So
I agree. Hey, Ed, in the last couple minutes here, Ed, why don't you take the last few minutes here, share with everybody how they can connect with you, whether it's your speaking business, how they can get your book, how they can find your radio show, any other place to contact you, Ed. Take the next few minutes and just kind of go with that.
Well, if you want to, I have all kind of different avenues to reach me. One of them is my website, edsmithspeaks.com. So you can go there. You can actually see what I've done in terms of my past, as far as being an athlete, what I'm doing now as a speaker. You can actually order the book there as well. So there's a book tab. If you want to go to edsmithspeaks.com, you can click on the book tab. If you order it there, I actually have the luxury of getting them from my personal staff, signing them, and getting them back out to you. I know a lot of people go on Amazon and different things like that, but you get the book from Amazon, all that money goes to Amazon, and you don't get anything personalized. So you can go there to edsmithspeaks.com. Like I said, all kind of different things about me on that site. As far as the radio show, every Saturday on KDUS 1060 AM out here in Phoenix, and also you can go on to the 1060am.com site, and you can download the show there, or you can listen to us live when we're on Saturdays. You can listen to the past performances as well. Like I said, as far as on Instagram and Facebook, I'm at Ed Smith Speaks, and Twitter as well, Ed Smith Speaks. On the Facebook, we also have it's called The Easy Sports Talk Show. That's on Facebook, so you can follow us there as well. And then trying to think all those different ways, if you want to email me and talk or chat, maybe set up something where, I can help anybody out. You want to partner with the show as far as being a sponsor or anything like that. Or if you want to book me as a speaker, you can email me at edsmithspeaks@gmail.com. So everything with me is Ed Smith Speaks. So you can find me, Google me. If you Google my name, you're going to get a whole bunch of old Ed Smiths who were born in the early 1900s. Eventually, you'll get to that dude who was born in 1969 and find out all the things you want to know about me, how you can contact me. And, for me, Arnie, like I said, I appreciate an opportunity like this more than anything, just an opportunity to talk to you and do what we do. This is like a session, like when we're at events and stuff, this is just how we talk, period. So this is just a form that's being recorded. And
Ed, I keep telling you, because I'm going to manifest this. That's the word of 2020's word, right? I'm going to manifest this where you and I are doing events together more often, dude. And I really believe it. I finally got Carrie to get me to. We're doing an event together next week, so I'm going to slowly get her to kind of, bring me into the fold there, and then we're going to bring you in, and we're going to work this thing, buddy. And
it's one of those things, man. When time marches on, but we don't separate far, man. So whenever, like I said, we'll figure it out too. Because anything you and Carrie and everybody, I got your back, man. So we'll walk the road together, and I appreciate it, man.
One thing that's going on, and as we finish up here, we need to bring more of this joy and fulfillment to other people's lives, and as good as it might seem for other people out there. I was telling somebody today, all I have to do is look at some lives that I know that are just really bad, and it just puts things in perspective for me to think, who am I to complain? Who am I to moan and groan when my life is not that life? You know what I'm saying? I need to be grateful and thankful for what I have, my health and opportunities. And I just need to be quiet and do what God has me on the path to do. You know what I'm saying?
If I can leave you with this, Arnie, and my dad before he passed, man, I mean, that you talking about my hero. That was my dude. That was my best friend, the man who influenced me the most. If I lived to be he had a saying, man, and my dad was probably one of the most imperfect men, and he'd admit it in this world. But, he went through his trials and tribulations. He always, came back, and he lived a good life to his last days. He used to always tell me he would look at things, and he would say, there before the grace of God go I. And I've kept that saying with me. Anytime I see someone who's really struggling, or you pass somebody on the street and they're, homeless. And I just remind myself, whatever I'm going through, I could be that. And I always remind myself, and sometimes I just whisper to myself, there before the grace of God go I. And that reminds me of how blessed I am, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what I'm dealing with. I'm living a good life, and I'm trying to live it every single day as the best of my ability. And that, like I said, that's just something that, kind of drives me.
Yeah. Well, Ed, I appreciate you, man. And we're going to end the show now, everybody. And it's been, Ed, this is what Ed and I do. We could just keep talking because he's a great spirit. He's a big man with an even bigger heart. And so get a hold of him if you have something that he can do. And please jump on his radio show and have a listen to him. He's got a good, fun show, and he's a great guy. Ed, I appreciate you, brother, and let's obviously stay in touch.
Thank you, Arnie, and thank you, CC.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.